Say, in all my years of racing here at Ruapuna, it's hard to remember a time when there was less enthusiasm to come out onto pit lane. So we're now up to a grand total of 4 bikes in the Pro Twins and F3, and we'll see if we can improve on that. It's going to be a long day, ladies and gentlemen, if it carries on like this. The weather forecast is supposed to clear. We're looking at a high of around 14 degrees today, and hopefully we get a little bit of wind that will help blow some of the clouds away. So fingers crossed. We just pray to the weather gods that things work out. And, what a dramatic effect the weather has on people's feelings. Look at it. There's nobody on pit lane. There's nobody on the track. Everybody's hunkering down. Oh well, we just have to deal with it. None of us are made of gravy. Some of us just don't like riding in the rain. And a lot of people will be saving their energy and saving their bikes and tyres for the GP classes this afternoon. So we will be running for the New Zealand Grand Prix titles this afternoon. It's a very prestigious event and something which is fiercely contested every year. They're sponsored this year by Bridgestone, and it's probably the one class or the one championship that people really, really want to win, because the trophies that go with this championship event are legendary. The opportunity to get your name written on that trophy, which is previously won by some of the best road racers this country's ever produced, is something people will work hard to achieve. So there will be a lot of competition for the GPs and a lot of the bikes out there, but it is all down to the rain. So I've never seen a grid of 4 bikes before. A wave of apathy has swept across pit lane. Not to mention, people just don't like riding in the wet. I do, every time I see a wet race like this, I always think of a chap from Timaru called Paul Fisher. Some of you may know, runs a Ducati, has been running for years. Paul Fisher spent 28 years in the Royal Navy in submarines. And at Greymouth one year, one of the legendary wet years, I talked to him about the rain. I said, "Do you like riding in the rain, Paul?" And he went, "I hate it," he said. So I thought, well, after 28 years of being in a submarine, you'd think he'd be quite used to the wet, but obviously not. But oh, Wendy, she's doing a sterling job for just 4 bikes. There we go. Whoops. Right, so for your commentary team today, I'm Phil Garrett, and I'm joined up here today again by Ian Templeton, what should we say? He's been around the traps long enough to know virtually everybody and virtually everything. He was Andrew Stroud's race mechanic for several years and obviously knows everybody. He's a tyre expert, suspension expert, and just generally a good all-round good bastard. So Ian, welcome to Ruapuna, and thank you very much. I appreciate your presence and your input, and yes, it's going to be a long day for a commentator when it's a bit more like commentating on a snooker match than it is commentating on a race meeting, but there you go.
I think as the day wears on, Phil, and thanks for the great intro there, mate. I think as the day wears on, we'll see guys getting keener and keener. It's a bit difficult first session out in the rain. We've got to be honest and say that the track will be in pretty average condition this morning with the wet weather. Having had the Scope Classic here last weekend, there'll be car rubber and car oil down all over the track, and the rain will just be lifting all that to the surface. So it will be quite greasy for the riders out there. So I wouldn't expect to see the pace being pushed hugely by anyone in the first sessions this morning. Guys will be just out there having a feel around, trying to get to grips with the circuit after yesterday's hot and grippy conditions.
I'd say that we're probably going to be 15 to 20 seconds down on lap times over yesterday due to the conditions. I mean, you will get used to it. You do get used to it. Bikes generally find that in weather like this, you won't get a dry line. It's not like cars where they're all using very similar lines. But with a bike and it's such a narrow tyre profile, you just generally don't get a dry line, so it's consistently wet all the way round. But one blessing is that I can't see any standing water, so
no, you're right, Phil. There is no standing water on the circuit that I can see. So that will give at least consistently poor grip.
yeah, that's just right. But moving on through the classes as we go through the day, some of the classes do have the option of changing tyres and wheels for wet and even monsoon type tyres. But there again is a very difficult decision for the riders, because you can actually find that slick tyres on a damp track are better than wet tyres on a drying track, because the wet tyres are not generally as hard as they overheat a lot more readily than the slick tyres. You can actually get wet tyres too hot and they will just basically evaporate. They just disappear. There's so much traction that you're basically you're scrubbing the tyre, and you can trash a set of tyres in one race. And if you're running too wet tyres on a drying track. So the riders will have to make a decision based on the conditions 20 minutes before the race, whether they go for wets or dries. But we'll see that progress as the day goes on. But at the moment, everybody's on wets, and, well, I say everybody, all four of them. And they're out there feeling their way around. And the other thing, of course, is you have to change all of the suspension setups to accommodate wet weather. You don't want it to be as sharp. You bought it. So when you're moving from wet to dry or dry to wet, Ian, what changes do you make to your suspension as a rule?
Essentially, I think most of the guys would soften up their suspension going from the dry to the wet, generally by about 10%. The lap times tend to fall away by about 10% from a dry track to a wet track. So if you soften off your spring rate and your dampening rates by about 10%, that generally puts the bike in the same feeling for the reduced speed. So that at least gives the rider confidence knowing that the bike's going to behave the same braking, the same turn, the same mid-corner. So about 10% reduction in spring preload, compression and rebound dampening gets you close.
Yeah, it's still a bit of a gamble though, and you don't know quite how the bike's going to react, and it will feel so different to yesterday. And over the course of a day, when you're racing every couple of hours, you build up a feel. The bike basically beds into the track for the day, and then you turn around the following day, and have to set up all over again. So you're starting from scratch. So yes, a bit of a challenge, but that is unfortunately part of racing in New Zealand.
Absolutely, and to be honest. I suppose to claim to be the best racer in New Zealand, you've got to be able to do it in all conditions. So the rain is a big leveller for everybody.
I mean, the rain never stopped people in the past. So we've been running in the rain ever since we've been running race meetings here. So it is just one of those things. But hopefully we'll get a little bit of wind. That will start blowing the clouds away, and by lunchtime it should start to clear. We'll see. So we've got 3 Pro Twins and 1 Formula 3 bike out on the track. So it looks like Matt McLaughlin on the Formula 3 bike is going to be first and last in his class. And the 3 Formula Pro Twins are all going to manage a podium place. So we'll see. So coming up after Pro Twins, we've got the Super Sport 300s and the 250 Productions. Now, having a bit of a chat to some people around pit lane on the 250s, none of them have bought wet tyres with them. There's not, as far as I'm aware, none of the 250s have got wets, so there may not be too many of them out there today. We'll see about the 300s. I think they run a stock tyre. Pretty sure they run road tyres, those Super Sport 300s.
Yeah, although I did see some of the Super Sport 300 bikes being fitted with front wets, so I'm not sure on the rules. Perhaps the 250s have to maintain a production tyre and the 300s are allowed the wets, or maybe they both are these days. I know in the 150 class that they're stuck on production tyres.
Yep, and the Junior Gixxers as well.
And the Junior Gixxers as well. So production tyres for the smaller teams, and they also have the disadvantage of not being able to use tyre warmers. So on a day like this, it's going to be very hard to generate any heat in those little bikes.
Tyre warmers in the rain, what's the point?
Well, to be honest, you still generate heat in the rain. Tyre warmers, generally on a wet tyre, you'd send a bike out with somewhere in the region of 40 degrees instead of the 80 or 90 degrees that you'd see on a slick tyre. But it still it helps with them, definitely.
I would have thought by the time they'd done one lap in the wet, it would be cold again.
No, it's not the case. They do hold the heat quite well.
Okay.
The more braking force you apply, the better they get.
But then again, we've got the same question that we were talking about yesterday with Ruapuna being a predominantly left-handed track. Aren't you going to get one side of the tyre warmer than the other?
Definitely the right-hand side of the tyre will cool off significantly here at Ruapuna on the wets. The left-hand side, though, still maintains its heat pretty well.
Right, interesting.
In fact, I was overheard Seth Devereaux this morning talking. He went out for a quick scrub session on his MV Augusta F3 675, and he told me that he went out on unwarmed wets and was surprised by how much heat he'd managed to generate within 3 laps.
Mind you, you are talking Seth Devereaux. He's a freak of nature anyway, so whether the same thing would apply to anybody else, I don't know. But,
yeah, Seth's got amazing abilities in the wet, that's for sure.
Oh, he has. I've seen him race before.
So just back to the race at hand. Interestingly enough, Matt McLaughlin has just taken first place on the Yamaha R450. That's a Yamaha R6 that's been retuned to be a 3-cylinder 450cc, and he's leading, as Phil said, leading and losing his class at the same time. Nick Bolink on the SV650 is currently running in second place overall, but first in his class, followed by Paul Bergman and Joshua Double, both also on SV650s. And it looks like Joshua Double has just entered the pits. So that's unfortunate for Josh. If he keeps going, he will still pick up third place. So is he going to roll through, or is he rolling into the pits? No, he's decided to call it a day.
His race is over.
His race is done.
It's a shame, 1 lap to go.
Indeed. Although, you know, the rain can play havoc with electrical components and things like that, so we can never just tell from where we're sitting what the actual cause was. But here we have Matt McLaughlin working his way round through the dipper and onto the main straight sweeper. So Matt McLaughlin coming to take first place overall and first place in his class, F3. So well done, Matt McLaughlin.
Well, there's 1 lap to go.
One lap to go.
White flag's out.
White flag out.
There's a wee bit of water down the end of the straight, eh? So you can see it's beginning to pool down there.
Certainly seeing a bit more spray coming off the tyres down the bottom end of the circuit. And it does look to be a bit more misty down that way as well, so perhaps we're going to see another wee bit of a shower. It does look like it's brightening up just directly over the commentator's box though. So hopefully that's a sign of the weather just starting to break up, and perhaps we're going to see a drying track for the rest of the day.
They're so slow. They're so slow through that dip. I mean, I know why, because I've done this before, but mate, it's slow as a wet week. It really is. I feel sorry for them out there, but you know, good luck to them for doing it. But yeah, it's hard. I feel a bit sorry for the North Islanders to come all this way to sit and watch the racing from the pit lane. But there you go.
And it
is
like,
brightening up a bit. I think the sun is starting to come through. We've got a rainbow just appeared over the.
Looks like Matt McLaughlin
south.
pulling off the track as well at the top end of the circuit there.
Like flies. There's only 2 bikes out there now. Is there even 2 bikes? Oh, yeah, 2.
There are still 2 bikes running around. That's a shame for Matt. I did see him slowing significantly as he went through the double left-hand complex into pothole. So I'm going to suggest that that is a mechanical issue for Matt McLaughlin. Sorry, that was Paul Bergman coming into the pits. There's Matt McLaughlin there taking the checkered flag. So congratulations, Matt McLaughlin. Although there was only 2 bikes finishing in the class, you can only beat the people that turn up on the day. So first place is a creditable first place for Matt McLaughlin.
A win is a win.
Dead right.
No question about it.
Dead right. And the same for Nick Bolink. Both people thoroughly deserving their win because they were the 2 that stayed out there. So congratulations to those 2 guys.
Right, so we're just waiting to see who turns up for the next race. It's a combined Supersport 300 and 250 production, and we were speculating that some of the 250 boys just don't have wet tyres, so we'll see. We might have another reduced grid race, so to speak.